Welcome back to Road Gang Radio. Join Jimmy Mack and Lindsay Lawler's Gang of the Airwaves by subscribing to Radio Nemo on YouTube.
We celebrate all kinds.
Make it official. After all, if you're listening, you're already in the gang. The Road Gang.
Hey, you want to know who's actually been in the gang? One of the founding members of the reconstituted Road Gang? Of course, it is DAT, that guy, owner of the Grumpy Pete Peterbilt. He's got 2.5 million miles and growing. Actually, much more than that now, I'm guessing, and growing. Some of it he has actually gained in that Grumpy Pete Peterbilt. It is our friend, chief analyst for DAT. Dean Croke is alive and well and on the scene. Hey, man, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I put a few more miles on the truck up to Quebec and back over the weekend to the truck races. Still recovering. Still got a hoarse voice and a little bit of pollution in my eyes from all the races, but survived nonetheless.
I wanted to tell you really quickly. We just did the anniversary of Katrina, and I posted a little bit about this. There is a remarkable story I've been dying to share with you, and then we'll kind of dig into cardboard. By the way, this is the most fascinating conversation you will ever hear about cardboard, guys. I'm not kidding. It will change your life and how you look at the economy. There was a woman named Linda, formerly Linda Morrison. She was married to a man named Tony Morrison, who he finished third in the mayor's race. Dean, if he had gotten 1,000 more votes, he would have made the runoff and he would have become mayor of New Orleans. That's how close he came. And the second part of his life was kind of tragic. He had a drinking problem and he smoked too much and his life kind of unraveled. Linda left him. She loved him, but she left him. And his friends began to fall away. He was never a mean drunk, just kind of a gentle soul, but he couldn't handle his liquor. And worse than that, he was smoking 2.5 packs of cigarettes a day. A handsome, erudite man with a booming voice, and he could captivate an audience, but he had deteriorated. So Linda and her new husband, Gene, went to go visit him in the hospital, and he was all by himself, and he was dying there, and his kids wouldn't come see him, and his other wife had pretty much left him, served him with divorce papers, and he was dying there. And Linda and her new husband, Gene, actually made the decision to bring him back to their house in, the Lakeview neighborhood in New Orleans. They put him up there. And because of that, all of his friends got to come and visit. It wasn't sad. They kept him happy. He was able to give his daughter away at her wedding, which they had at the house. All kinds of great stuff. And he passed at the house. At his ex-wife and her new husband's home, he passed away. Katrina happens, and they are completely caught off guard. And their house floods in the same way my parents' house floods, the same neighborhood. They get 13 feet of water in 30 minutes. And they had stayed, and the water rose like crazy, and they would have drowned in the house. The punchline is unbelievable. Do you know what saved them, Madison? The bed. They had a hospital bed in there, so the mattress was one of those hospital mattresses. They kept the bed there, and they floated to safety on his bed.
Goodness me.
And what she said was, I can't believe that Gene's act, because it was Gene that did it. Because, the other thing is the fact that, Gene did that because he's the one that had to tell Linda it was okay that this man, her ex-husband, could die with dignity in their house. And he said, Tony saved their lives. Tony saved their lives. Really quickly, because I got a whole half hour, so I got to cram in.
I've just been watching the new documentary, the National Geographic Katrina documentary, and man, it's hard to watch. I was too little to really understand what was happening. My family evacuated. But I'll never forget, coming home after the hurricane was said and done. And my stepdad, who used to come to New Orleans, every weekend, stopped coming because he's the city has never been the same since.
Yeah.
So.
I'll tell you what, and this is one I didn't tell on social media, Dean. My cousin, Sean, is an EMT, and we got a chance. We were in the city 3 days later, and we were in boats with the Cajun Navy. Sean got to the top of the roof, and a woman had tried to get through a roof, had cut her way through the roof, and she punctured her lung, and she was bleeding out.
Oh.
And he got up on the roof, and he held her hand, and they realized they couldn't do anything for her. She was going to die out, and her daughter was saying, "I'm so sorry," and Sean, who was holding back tears, said, "I'm so sorry." And what she told him before she died, she said, "It is okay, baby." She said, "It is so good to know that I am leaving this world in the hands of a man who is doing the work of the Lord." And It was rough.
Absolutely.
It,
Absolutely.
it was rough times. And, as I said, though, on the post I made on Friday, on the 29th, guess what was still here? And you've been here, the city of New Orleans. Somehow we get through and somehow we survive. And I kept thinking about all of that, too, in regards to there's a lot of uncertainties in the market right now. There's a lot of people are getting hit by some really hard times out there in the trucking industry. Some people, as you pointed out, too, there are people who are doing well. But there are people getting hit. But you know what? You've always said it. The American economy and the American consumer, there are a bunch of resilient SOBs, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's I'm out here in the Midwest. I'm heading to the Big Iron Classic in Casson, Minnesota. But driving from Chicago to Minneapolis yesterday, it's harvest season. So, there's nothing but corn all the way. So, it hasn't been harvested yet. But what struck me as I was driving, and this gets back to the axis of upheaval meeting in China this week with China, India, Russia, and all of the other countries. China hasn't purchased any soybeans this year. This is a really big deal, and that spells disaster for a lot of Midwest farmers. And so there's so much upheaval going on around the world. There's so much uncertainty going on. These are really perilous times that we're in. There's so much going on, but against that, we've faced these times before. Somehow we find a way to get through it. And I'm always struck by, I've only been here in this country 25 years. I'm always reminded by how resilient the U.S. economy is and how resilient the U.S. consumer is. So I never count them out. We always find a way to get through it, but there's a lot of ups and downs. But I'm not sure we've faced an uncertain time like we're facing right now. We're in literally in uncharted territory right now. We've never seen anything quite like this before. Normally, we've had some precedent to draw from in past upheavals with, geopolitical risk. We're seeing unprecedented levels of tariffs, geopolitical risk, change in the world order, potential impact on global currencies that we haven't seen before. There's some things going on that could really change things. And it just, for truckers out there, it just means a lot of uncertainty. G-Mac, we don't, I spoke at a group of 600 truckers yesterday at the Cotting and Butler conference in Chicago. And I was really honest with them. I said, we don't know where this market's going. Anybody that tells you they know where the freight market's going is not being honest with you, because we don't know. Your shippers that pay you freight and give you loads, they don't know. Just look at the jobs numbers. Hiring numbers are decreasing. They're not hiring people. It's taking people that are looking for jobs longer to find jobs. Because companies are doing exactly what you and I talked about 4 months ago. They're using their worst case scenario because they don't know how bad things could get. I mean, they hope things will get better, but when you run a business where there's uncertainty, you've got to plan for the worst case scenario, and that's how it's playing out right now. So whilst we expect the best, a lot of companies are planning for the worst, and if you look at the freight market, it's stuck. We're stuck in this place right now where it's not going anywhere. It's not going up and it's not going down, and we're kind of just grinding it out and surviving the best we can. And that's what we're really good at. We are good at surviving. And I guess that's where we sort of started this segment is, we're particularly good at grinding it out, but it wears you down after a while. And that's kind of where you get to go to truck shows this weekend and people get together and commiserate, but they also get to celebrate the fact that they've been able to survive for so long and get through all of these hard times.
I'll tell you this too, and as if to make matters worse, because we're at the point now where the uncertainty has become the norm and not the exception. What is interesting is everything that we have kind of braced for, thought was coming, know is coming, is in place right now. All of it could evaporate in the blink of the eye if the Roberts Court says, you know what, we agree with the lower court. Because we have a situation where the lower court of appeals, the federal court of appeals, in a 7-4 ruling, ruled that most of what Trump has imposed, President Trump has imposed tariff-wise, is beyond the scope of his powers. They're saying that he can't cite wartime powers, emergency powers on tariffs, that he has to get approval from Congress. He may get it, by the way. They may be locked and loaded and ready to roll on that. But If they toss it, that's the ball game, and we're back to where we were. That may see some loosening up, but that means he's going to come back and try to figure out some other way to do it within the. He'll have some lawyers. He'll sit down and say, okay, here's how we can make this work. So the uncertainty may amp up in a couple of weeks.
Which continues. It just makes more uncertainty last longer, which extends the freight recovery longer. We're talking about a freight recovery well into 2026. And we saw some data points that came out in August that suggest there's a negative freight inversion that happened in 2019, that happened in 2024, that happened in 2016. So when we looked at the last 4 freight recessions, there's what we call a negative freight inversion in a data point that comes from the Logistics Managers Index. We just saw the 2 data points cross over. It's where capacity increases and prices drop. We just saw that happen for the first time in a year last month. Now, it's only 1 data point for 1 month, but if it happens next month and the month after, that's a sure sign that we're headed back into another deep freight recession. So I'm not ringing the alarm bells, but the warning signs are flashing. And we need some certainty. We need a lot of things to happen. We need certainty in trade policy, and we need things like the Fed to drop interest rates a little bit to give us a little bit of breathing space. But I think overall we need demand to solidify, and to do that we need certainty in the trade policy, because that's what gives our shippers that make freight that goes on the back of our trucks the confidence to build and invest and hire and put another production line on and generate more activity for us. That's what really drives us. Capacity leaving the industry is not going to move the needle. Focusing on marginal things like drivers that can't speak English, that's not going to move the needle. We're focusing on the wrong things. The only way this market will change is through demand. That's what drives this market. It's never changed through a change in supply. It'll change through demand. And that's what we're lacking right now. And that's why it's going sideways and it's stuck, because the people that drive the demand for our services, they're stuck. They don't know what to do right now. And we've not seen this. We've been stuck in this position, I'm going to say, for probably 6 or 7 months now. And it's kind of getting deeper and deeper. And the more you get into this malaise that we're in, the longer it's going to take for people to come out of it, because they're really, really uncertain about where things are going to go. They kind of lost trust in the process. Because what you lose sight of with all of the news and the buzz is we've got a tightly integrated global supply chain, and you can't break that overnight and just suddenly change things and expect it to all work seamlessly. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and it is. I'll tell you. Here's the nightmare scenario. Okay, I'm giving people the nightmare scenario because there are a couple of stabilizing scenarios as well too. The first one is that the Supreme Court kicks the can. And what I mean by that is that the ruling is a 5-4 milquetoast ruling where there is room to maneuver, where they say, take another run at it, see if you can work this out, or they kick it back down to the court. If the court comes out and says they're illegal, any form of them is illegal, we're done here, that actually has certainty to it. If the court comes out and says they're fine, the president is well within the scope of his powers to do such a thing, you may not agree with either one of those places, but that's certainty. It's like, okay, the issue is resolved. Let's move forward now. The next part of the nightmare scenario, and I'd love to get your take. There's a number of the people who actually listen to this show, some of whom are friends of mine, one of whom is a cigar smoker. They actually have what I call consistent routes. We talk about the idea all the time. You've brought this up. Not the people who are constantly chasing freight, but the people who have really secure routes. I'm talking about the people who actually, grind it out, make their living, have a steady sense of every day of a variation of the same thing. When those jobs start disappearing, those pockets you talk about where people are doing well, if those start disappearing, if those start scaling back, if the perimeters and the guardrails of those begin to shrink, that's the canary in the coal mine. Continued uncertainty followed by, what's the phrase, recession proof. There are certain gigs that are recession proof. And when recession-proof jobs begin to cut back, that's what people have to look for. That's when the trouble really starts. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that that is not the outcome. That court ruling is going to play a lot of it. All right. By the way, this is not the prophet Jeremiah or the prophet Ezekiel talking to you. We are not the gloom and doom kids. Dean Croke joins us. We are going to talk a little bit about corrugated cardboard here because it's really fascinating. Can you kind of unpack that for our listeners?
Yeah, it's a great story. We talk about jigsaw puzzles a lot and the pieces. One of the pieces of the freight market jigsaw puzzle is cardboard. It's a data point that tells you about what's happening in freight because cardboard's used for packaging things that we put in the back of our trailers, everything from donuts to dishwashers. And nearly half of surveyed box producers report worsening demand for the 3 months at the start of the year compared to the last 3 months. So it's a potential warning sign for retail demand and potentially a broadening economic slowdown. So there's been a continued decline in corrugated cardboard sales used for shipping consumer goods. And nearly half of the box producers say there's worsening demand. There's cost pressures. Container box prices have risen by about $70 per tonne in early 2025 due to tariffs. Look at some of the volume numbers. In the first quarter of this year, there was about a 2.1% year-over-year decline in corrugated cardboard containerboard shipments. And through Q2, there was some recovery. International Paper, the really big company, reported a 5% drop in US box shipments. WestRock, 4.5% slide. So when you look at data points like this, market analysts look at things like cardboard and use it as a bellwether for the economy. And it turns out it's a really telling economic indicator, and persistent softness in sectors like this foretell a broader economic slowdown. But again, one data point on its own isn't the be-all and end-all. But again, it's just another data point that tells us that things aren't going the way that we would expect them to. And whether you look at farm machinery sales, we touched on soybean sales. If you think about if China doesn't order soybeans, we don't get commodity prices up. Farmers don't buy farm machinery, don't put orders in for new equipment. RGN, over-dimensional haulers, won't be hauling as many broadacre farm tractors this year out of Baltimore. So there's a ripple effect through the entire economy from some of these data points. If we don't get a drop in interest rates, builders won't build as many single-family homes, flatbedders won't be moving as much, roofing shingles, and dry vans won't be hauling as much drywall or carpet or light fittings, things like that. So all of these data points fit together, but when you look at them in the broader context, none of them are moving in a positive direction. They're all flat to sideways and maybe down. And that just, when you put all these data points together, Jimmy Mac, they just tell us that the market is flat, it's stuck, it's moving sideways, and there's just not a lot of good news. Now, I will say that there was one data point that came out this week, and it's the Institute of Supply Management Purchasing Managers Index, the ISM PMI. It came out. Now, the headline number was up about 1%, which is great news, but the headline number kind of hides the other data points that are more instructive. The sub-index of the manufacturing PMI, now remember for those listening, the ISM PMI correlates really tightly to truckload rates. Now, the sub-index, the new orders index, which are new orders for future freight, broadly speaking, it grew by about 4.3 percentage points, but it grew for the first time after dropping for 6 months. So that's really good news. That tells us that there is some hope that maybe manufacturers are seeing some, positivity down the road. So again, there's a lot of mixed signals in the economy right now. So that's why I'm not writing off the US economy right now, but there's a lot of mixed signals out there, and we've got to be very careful with how we see things. And it just reinforces, if you're listening to any of us or other people out there talking about the economy, always weigh it on your own scales. put it in the context of your own business. But remember, one data point doesn't make a market direction, but over time we start to build a picture. And right now, I think the best thing that we can say is that it's still moving sideways, but it really is stuck. I think we'll know. Jimmy Mack, you made a great point about the federal, the Supreme Court ruling. I think that'll be a really pivotal moment. We've got to see how this trade policy plays out. Once we know what the Fed interest rate change position looks like with the next meeting, I think we'll have a better indication. But I think we won't see much change in freight rates this side of the second quarter of next year, the way things are panning out.
The other thing is too is the fact that we talk about the idea of things being flat. Along with cardboard, I would love if you could tell people some other indicators like that. I think about wooden flats as well. The amount of orders for flats always is kind of a little bellwether of what's going on in the economy. I've always said on a real micro level, you can always look at how the food trucks outside of economic hubs are doing. The food trucks you see in front of like businesses and loading docks and all that. How well are they performing? There are these little tiny things in the economy that if you just pay attention, you can get a real sense. I don't know if you know this, but Joe Kennedy, the actual father of the Klan, John F. Kennedy's father, the reason he got out of the stock market in 1929 was that the guy who shined his shoes asked him for a stock tip. And he said there are too many people in the market. He literally told people that. He gave him a good tip. He said, you need to go invest in this right now, cash out immediately. And he said, well, when should I cash out? What does that mean? He goes, you'll see me on the floor. When you see me on the floor, cash out and don't invest it in again. It's done. And they're just little things. And he said when he realized that a shoe shine guy was actually in the market, he said guys like that shouldn't be in the market. That's not what the market's for. Yeah. And it's looking for little tiny blips of things out there that kind of give you an indication of where things are headed. Okay, by the way, thank you so much. Normally Dean joins us for the first full hour. We had to bring the folks from Allen along to talk about hurricane preparedness and flash flood preparedness and this great program they have. Great program where they are actually giving people weather radios. They are issuing weather radios and they're training camp counselors and people who run camps all over America how to use them effectively and bringing them to rural areas. The hurricane season, the natural disaster season in the Gulf South could have a very, I hate to say it, positive impact on both the macro and micro level, but it only happens if you're prepared. This is one of those places where you have to kind of double down on your pre-trip, not just make sure that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's, but making sure that you have all the necessary things so when the call goes out to help areas in distress, you are ready to roll either with your small fleet or in your individual truck, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I hear a lot of people talking about pre-tripping. I don't know. I'm always doing it. I'm kind of one of those guys that's always prepared. I don't know. It must be. My father has kind of drilled it into me. I'm always looking. I say to people, I kind of never do a pre and post trip check because I'm always doing it. It's like a survival instinct. I don't know how to explain it any other way. I'm always doing it.
Dean, I get it because last night, and Madison looked at me when we said pre-trip. She's like, are we talking about this again? I kid you not. Last night, my mom, I'm taking care of them. You've gotten a chance to meet them. They're both very vibrant. But my mom looked at me and she's like, you're already packing for tomorrow, aren't you? I'm like, here's the thing, Dean. I didn't realize I was doing it. I mean, I was just getting everything ready for the show tomorrow, I did all the notes, I put all this together, I went through your notes, all that stuff, and I was just putting everything back in my bag and just putting it by the door. Didn't even think about it. I mean, all this stuff has to be reflexive. Okay, we have enough time, and Madison, I'm going to ask for a little boon here. I'm going to go a little bit long, but we have enough time. Speaking about reflexive, the generosity of truckers, even through this economic crunch we're talking about, you've gotten a chance to see them give back. It's extraordinary what our friends out there are doing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the season, truck show season sort of winding up because we get into the colder months. But certainly here in the northeast or the northern tier of the country, I'm out here in Casson to the Big Iron Classic. I was last year in 2007. It's a great show that Jim and Brenda Finn started way back in 2000. So this is, we're talking about 25 years, I guess, that it started out with, they sent out an invitation like 30 or 40 people, 100 trucks turned up. And really, it was just about giving back and supporting Toys for Tots, which of course has become a really big thing. I think Toys for Tots has, since it started back in 1947, has given out something like 708 million toys to 314 million children. So one of the big things that happens throughout, from now until Christmas is events that are held, and nearly every truck show that I go to is raising, funds, money, whether it's the Big Apple event that's raising money for a young guy called Cam who's got brain cancer, or just collecting funds or donating toys for children at Christmas. The truckers' generosity is overwhelming, but what most people don't see, Jimmy Mack, is the time it takes to A, go to the show, but B, prepare your truck to put it in the condition to take it to the show. And on top of that, work a 60, 70-hour week. If you haven't done that, it's hard to describe how hard that is to do. The skinned knuckles, all the cursing that goes on, the late nights, the sleep deprivation, the frustration. It's not easy to turn up to a truck show with a pristine vehicle and put on a smile. It takes a lot of work to do that after a really busy week. And some of those weeks are really frustrating and tiring. So I'm just full of admiration for truckers that do this week in, week out. And this is the time that they really show their best stuff. And they, with Special Olympics, there's Wishes on Wheels, there's Touch a Truck events, there's Make-A-Wish events, all sorts of great things happening between now and the end of the year.
By the way, quick reminder, our friends who actually have a show after us today, Trucking with OIDA, actually got a chance to talk to the Chrome Shop Mafia and talk about the Guilt by Association truck show. There is a lengthy discussion of that in Trucking with OIDA, which is available everywhere you get your podcast now. So that episode is out. Talk to those folks and really dug deep into, what that money goes to, how it helps out, and all that stuff. And by the way, Dean, always keep me in the loop. As you know, having met my maniac brother, my youngest brother, he's got a special place in his heart for anything that involves raising money for autism awareness. So if you find out anything about that, please point it our way. We will be there to help, as we always try to do.
Yeah, we'll do. Great. I'll actually do that. There's a couple of shows coming up there. We've got some autism awareness focus. I'll do that for sure.
I'm going to see if we can actually drop you in on something else later on in the week or get you here sooner rather than later. Like I said, I really appreciate that. Kathy Fulton asked for a special dispensation to come in and talk about that program, hopefully to prevent anything that happened in the Texas region from ever happening again by getting people those weather radios. It makes such a big difference. And Dean, we always appreciate you. A founding member. By the way, the table is finished in the back. The studio is almost done. We only have to hang
Wonderful.
pictures. I will send you the picture of that. We actually, this is the coolest thing, Dean. You'll love this. We got 12 floating shelves, and we put records in each one of them. If you check out my video that is on Radio Nemo on Facebook, you will see me actually take it through. And Dre has actually got the Christmas albums already when the season rolls around to replace those floating shelf albums with Christmas trucking albums. Thank you, Dean. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.